Alaric's Tale. In the kingdom of Eldoria, nestled between rolling hills and dense, ancient forests, lived a reclusive wizard named Alaric. Alaric was known throughout the land for his formidable powers and his vast knowledge of the arcane. He resided in a towering stone keep on the outskirts of the village, surrounded by mystical wards and protective charms. Though many villagers feared him, they also respected and depended on his wisdom, seeking his counsel in times of dire need. Alaric's keep was a marvel of magical architecture. Ivy-clad towers pierced the sky, and enchanted lanterns floated gently in the air, casting a soft, ethereal glow. The air around the keep shimmered with arcane energy, and protective glyphs carved into the stone walls pulsed with a faint, reassuring light. Alaric himself was a tall, imposing figure, with a flowing silver beard and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see into one's very soul. His long robes, embroidered with ancient symbols, trailed behind him as he moved with a grace that belied his age. One fateful day, as a violent storm raged over Eldoria, a desperate knock echoed through Alaric's chamber. Opening the heavy wooden door, he found a bedraggled messenger from the royal castle, soaked to the bone and trembling with fear. "Master Alaric," the messenger stammered, "the princess has fallen gravely ill. The king begs for your help." Without a moment's hesitation, Alaric grabbed his staff and a satchel of magical herbs and potions. He followed the messenger through the storm to the castle, his long, dark robes billowing in the wind. The journey was treacherous, with lightning splitting the sky and torrential rain turning the path into a quagmire. But Alaric pressed on, his mind focused on the task ahead. Upon reaching the castle, Alaric was ushered into the princess's chamber. There, lying pale and motionless on a grand four-poster bed, was Princess Elara, the king's only daughter. Her breaths were shallow, and her skin was ashen, a stark contrast to her once vibrant beauty. The king, a stern yet sorrowful figure, stood at her bedside, his eyes pleading. "Please, Alaric," he implored, "save my daughter." Alaric nodded solemnly and approached the bed, sensing a dark and malevolent magic at work. He placed his hand gently on Elara's forehead and closed his eyes, murmuring an incantation. Visions of a shadowy figure poisoning the princess's dreams flooded his mind. He knew then that this was no ordinary illness, but a curse placed by a powerful sorcerer. "I will need time," Alaric said, his voice resolute. "This curse is deeply rooted. I must prepare a counterspell." For 3 days and nights, Alaric toiled in the castle's tower, concocting potions, mixing rare herbs, and inscribing ancient runes. He barely slept, driven by a fierce determination to save the princess. He consulted dusty tomes and summoned spirits of wisdom, all the while sensing the malevolent force growing stronger. During this time, Alaric discovered the origins of the curse. It was the work of Malika, a dark sorcerer banished from Eldoria many years ago. Malika had been consumed by jealousy and hatred towards the royal family, believing that they had wronged him. He had sworn vengeance, and now it seemed he was making good on his threat. The curse was a manifestation of his deep-seated malice, designed to drain the life from the princess and plunge the kingdom into despair. On the 4th night, as the full moon cast an eerie glow over the land, Alaric was ready. He descended to the princess's chamber, where the king and his court awaited anxiously. Alaric drew a circle of salt around the bed and placed enchanted candles at each cardinal point. He sprinkled the potion he had prepared onto the princess and began to chant in a deep, resonant voice. The air grew thick with magic, and the candles' flames flickered wildly. The shadowy figure from Alaric's vision materialized above Elara, writhing and howling in defiance. Alaric focused all his energy, directing it through his staff, and with a final, thunderous incantation, the shadow exploded into a cloud of dark mist, which dissipated into nothingness. Elara's eyes fluttered open, her color returning as she took a deep, life-affirming breath. The king rushed to her side, tears of joy streaming down his face. The court erupted in cheers, but Alaric, exhausted, simply smiled and nodded. "You have my eternal gratitude," the king declared, embracing the wizard. "How can I ever repay you?" Alaric shook his head. "Your thanks are enough, my lord. The princess is safe, and that is all that matters." With his task complete, Alaric returned to his keep, where he resumed his studies and solitary life. The story of his heroism spread throughout Eldoria, and the villagers' fear of him turned to admiration. They came to see him not just as a powerful wizard, but as a guardian and protector. As time passed, Alaric's reputation grew. He became a symbol of hope and strength for the people of Eldoria. They brought him gifts of gratitude, baskets of fresh produce, finely woven cloth, and intricate works of art. Though Alaric accepted these tokens graciously, he remained ever focused on his studies and the protection of the kingdom. One day, several months after the incident with Princess Elara, Alaric received another urgent message. This time, it was from the village of Bramblewood, nestled deep within the forest. The villagers were being terrorized by strange creatures that emerged from the woods at night, attacking livestock and causing great fear among the people. Alaric set out immediately, making his way through the dense forest to Bramblewood. The journey was fraught with danger, as the woods were filled with wild beasts and treacherous terrain. But Alaric's magic protected him, creating a shield that repelled the creatures and guided his steps safely. When he arrived in Bramblewood, he found the villagers huddled in fear, their once vibrant community now shrouded in anxiety. Alaric met with the village elder, a wise and kind woman named Moria, who explained the situation. "These creatures are unlike anything we have ever seen," Moria said, her voice trembling. "They are dark and twisted, with eyes that glow like embers. We are helpless against them." Alaric nodded, his mind already racing through possible solutions. He spent the day examining the damage and gathering information. That night, as darkness fell, Alaric prepared for a confrontation. He placed protective wards around the village and set up a series of magical traps. As the moon rose high in the sky, the creatures emerged from the forest. They were indeed terrifying, with twisted limbs and glowing red eyes. They moved with unnatural speed and ferocity, their guttural growls sending shivers down the spines of those who heard them. But Alaric was ready. He stood at the village's edge, staff in hand, chanting incantations that caused the wards to flare to life. The creatures snarled and lunged, but were repelled by the magical barriers. Alaric's traps ensnared several of them, holding them in place with glowing chains of energy. With a series of powerful spells, Alaric began to drive the creatures back. He summoned a wall of fire, forcing the beasts to retreat. The battle was intense, but Alaric's magic was stronger. One by one, the creatures were vanquished, their dark forms disintegrating into wisps of smoke. By dawn, the village was safe once more. The villagers emerged from their homes, their faces filled with gratitude and awe. Moria approached Alaric, her eyes shining with tears of relief. "You have saved us, Alaric," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "How can we ever repay you?" Alaric smiled gently. "Your safety is all the reward I need. But if you could, I would appreciate any information you might have on where these creatures came from." Moria nodded and led Alaric to the village's ancient library, a small but rich collection of texts and scrolls. Together, they pored over the documents, searching for clues. They discovered references to an old, abandoned fortress deep in the forest, said to be a place of dark magic. Determined to put an end to the threat once and for all, Alaric ventured deeper into the forest, following the clues he had uncovered. The journey took him to the heart of the woods, where the trees grew so thick and tall that they blocked out the sky. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Eventually, he arrived at the fortress. It was a crumbling ruin, overgrown with vines and moss. But Alaric could feel the dark energy emanating from it, a palpable sense of malevolence that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. Inside the fortress, Alaric found evidence of dark rituals and forbidden magic. The walls were covered in strange symbols, and the air was thick with the scent of old blood. At the center of the main chamber stood an ancient, stone altar, stained with dark, dried blood. It was clear that this was the source of the creatures that had terrorized Bramblewood. With great care, Alaric began to dismantle the dark magic that permeated the fortress. He destroyed the altar, breaking its power, and inscribed powerful runes to cleanse the area of its evil taint. The process took several days, during which Alaric barely rested. But he knew that this was the only way to ensure the safety of the village. Finally, with the fortress cleansed and the dark magic banished, Alaric returned to Bramblewood. The villagers greeted him as a hero, their faces filled with relief and joy. Moria thanked him profusely, and the village held a grand feast in his honor. Alaric stayed for a few days, enjoying the hospitality and warmth of the villagers. It was a rare respite from his solitary life, and he cherished the time spent among people who appreciated and respected him. But eventually, he knew it was time to return to his keep and his studies. As he made his way back through the forest, Alaric reflected on the events of the past weeks. He realized that his role as a protector and guardian was more important than ever. There were always new threats, new challenges to face. But as long as he had his magic and his determination, he knew he could overcome them. Back in his keep, Alaric resumed his studies with renewed vigor. He delved deeper into the mysteries of the arcane, always seeking new knowledge and understanding. The villagers of Eldoria, knowing that they could always rely on him in times of need, continued to bring him gifts and seek his counsel. And so, in the enchanted kingdom of Eldoria, the legend of Alaric the wizard lived on, a tale of courage, wisdom, and the unyielding fight against the forces of darkness. As the kingdom flourished, the people knew that as long as Alaric was there, they would always have a beacon of hope and a shield against the shadows. And as you drift off to sleep, dear reader, remember that within each of us lies the power to make a difference. Whether through acts of kindness, courage, or simply being true to oneself, we all have the ability to bring light to the darkest of places. Sleep well, and may your dreams be filled with the magic of Alaric's tale. This has been a Storytime story on YouTube. Thanks for listening.